can and will prove President Trump guilty of this conduct and of obstructing the investigation into his misconduct.
And if you don't know, now you know.
Democrats making their case to yank Donald Trump out of office while he has been spending his time making a new record on Twitter. Also ahead.
I think this disease is more serious than SARS.
Right now, millions of people in China are under lockdown as the country looks to get a deadly virus under control. And world leaders are gathering to mark 75 years since the liberation of the Auschwitz death camp. And welcome. I'm Lynda Kinkade, sitting in for Becky Anderson. Well, it is 5 p.m. in Jerusalem, 11 at night in Beijing, and 10 in the morning in Washington, where day 2 of the impeachment trial is about to get underway. Well, we begin on our big story, the Chinese officials that are now racing to slow the spread of a deadly virus amid the largest movement of people on the planet. And that's got authorities around the world on high alert. Let's get you the latest. 3 cities right now under lockdown, including the city where the virus was first detected. I'm talking about Wuhan in China. You can see it here in the center of the map. It is ground zero for the coronavirus. That is a pneumonia-like respiratory bug that has so far killed 17 people, with confirmed cases found as far as Washington State here in the U.S. Well, authorities in the city have all but closed it off. These are pictures of a railway station just before it got shut down to departing passengers. It's the same for the airport and now some of the main highways. Public transport within the city has also been suspended until further notice. Well, the World Health Organization has extended its emergency talks into a second day. The WHO is trying to decide if the coronavirus outbreak constitutes a public health emergency of international concern. Well, officials in Wuhan itself are not taking any chances. Take a look at this video. It was shot by Radio Free Asia. And you can see tents set up outside Wuhan Hospital. And a man in the video is warning residents to stay indoors. Well, it's now mandatory in the city to wear a face mask in all public places. Well, our David Culver, who just returned from Wuhan with his team, joins us now from Beijing, and here with us in studio is CNN Chief Medical Correspondent Dr Sanjay Gupta. Good to have you both with us. I want to start first with you, David, because you were in Wuhan. This is a city of 11 million people now in lockdown. You had to leave, and of course, it's not the only city. 2 other cities are now under lockdown, essentially not letting people in or out of the city.
You've got to grasp the scope of this, Lynda, by putting this in numbers. 20 million people, that's what we're talking about. And it's just outside of Wuhan that expands to include the other 2 cities within Hubei province in central China. And you're right, these folks are heavily restricted now in how they can get around. And part of the concern for folks there is that if they are sick, and people have been venting this on social media, and they can't use public transport, how are they going to get to the hospital? So that's something that's been certainly vented, and it's a worthy concern because they have not set a timeline for when they will allow public transportation to continue. For those of us who were able to get out, and there were hundreds along with us who got up early into the middle of the night to make that departure, it was a little bit unnerving. But I want to walk you through that process and see what other folks were dealing with.
A rushed checkout sparked by a 3 a.m. phone call. We headed to the train station as soon as we got word. The city of Wuhan, China, essentially going on lockdown. Officials set a deadline for 10 o'clock Thursday morning. All public transportation, including airports, highways, and train stations, to halt service out of the city. A drastic effort to contain the spreading and deadly coronavirus. As we arrived, crowds already lined up for tickets, stretching out the door.
This gives you an idea of how seriously people are taking this idea to leave Wuhan and get out before public transportation is strictly limited. We've noticed a good number of people rushing to this train station. Interesting to note, this railway station is located just a few blocks away from the seafood market, the epicenter, according to health officials, of this virus.
That market's been shut down for weeks, guarded by security and police. Without special permission, no one in. so as to prevent any potential exposure from getting out.
Have you thought about leaving?
A bit.
Before leaving Wuhan, we met Jan Brandes, a PhD student from Belgium. He went to the hospital this week not feeling well. He says they told him he had a fever and sent him to be tested for the coronavirus.
They put you in this place with other people, and you start thinking, well, okay, maybe now this guy next to me is coughing. What happens, you know?
He tested negative, but has been wearing a mask since, which is now mandatory in Wuhan's public spaces, like the train station. Passing through rail security, thermal detectors monitor for possible fevers. Inside, some passengers feeling panicked.
In such a short time, the number of cases has doubled several times.
Others feeling it's all been a bit overhyped.
For me, in Wuhan, I haven't felt that kind of tension or panic at all. I think people are okay. People are getting on with eating, drinking, and living.
But she's leaving nonetheless. And during the Spring Festival, in which families are supposed to be together, some are making the difficult choice to be apart, sending their young children outside the city limits while they stay to face the unknowns back home.
And that's the reality. Putting this in context, Lynda, is that this is the Lunar New Year holiday season, and it is when hundreds of millions are normally traveling. Of course, now you have folks who are feeling these restrictions, and the restrictions go beyond just travel. Even within the cities, in some of these lockdown city scenarios, they can't go to public events. They can't go to entertainment venues. They can't go to any of the gatherings that would be normally taking place for this holiday. It's a bit frustrating and unnerving for these folks.
Yeah, definitely. Certainly tough for families who wait all year to catch up for this particular event. David Culver for us now in Beijing. Good to have you there. Thanks so much. Well, I want to ask Dr. Gupta about this further, because we know from the World Health Organization that it is a statistical certainty that there would be another pandemic flu like the Spanish virus of 1918. But we're not saying that this is it. Coronavirus isn't necessary. We don't want to be alarmist at all.
Right.
But we do want people to be aware, right?
Yeah, I mean, that is always in the back of mind for public health officials. When you have a new virus, that basically means it's a virus that the world hasn't seen before, and people haven't been exposed to it before, so they have no immunity. That's the real concern. If you suddenly start to have a virus that's spreading that we have no immunity to, that's the big concern. We don't know exactly, as you point out, how much this will spread or how severe this will be. But all these steps that David was outlining that are taking place now are part of many steps to try and lessen the spread. I don't think anyone thinks that we can stop it, given that the thing is spreading already, this virus, not only among animals to humans, but humans to humans. And then we just learned over the last couple of hours, Lynda, second or third generation humans, meaning I could spread it to you, and then you could go spread it to other people.
Right.
That's the sort of how transmissible this virus is, and that's what they're trying to address here.
And Dr. Sanjay, there have been a lot of comparisons made between this and the SARS virus. What do they have in common?
Well, they're the same family of viruses. They're called the coronavirus. And it's interesting because, you know, only 7 times has it been documented that a coronavirus has actually moved from animals to humans. Only 7 times. And most of the times it has been inconsequential. Didn't even make a dent in terms of symptoms. Twice it's been a problem, and that was SARS, and that was MERS, the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. Those were both coronaviruses as well. So that's really what they have in common. They have some similar behaviors. They may transmit the same way. The big question mark right now, if someone is not sick, if they're in what's called the incubation period, they're infected but haven't developed symptoms yet, are they contagious at that point? And we still don't fully know the answer to that. It doesn't look like they are, but you know, we're literally every minute, every hour, we're getting new information about this that could change how we look at it.
We were speaking yesterday about how the regular flu right now is more deadly in the time it's taken since this virus started to spread. The regular flu is far more deadly. Yeah. But you were pointing out that at least there is a vaccine that is somewhat effective with the regular flu. With this, not yet.
That's right. We don't have a vaccine. There is a vaccine that they're working on. In fact, we spent some time at the NIH talking to the doctors, Dr. Fauci, who runs this particular division, about that. And let's listen to what he had to say specifically about that.
What we're doing here is we're developing a vaccine that we're going to at least put through what we call phase 1. Namely, we're going to test it to see if it's safe and if it induces the kind of response that you hope would be protective. We may not take it beyond phase 1.
And what he's basically saying by that, Lynda, is phase 1 is to determine if something's safe. Normally you'd go through phase 2 and phase 3. Sometimes you don't have that luxury. So if this thing is safe and seems to show any kind of effectiveness, they may release a vaccine like that early to try and mitigate the spread of this. Let me just show you one more thing, if I can, that gives you an idea of how public health officials really look at this. This box, there's 2 important points. One is how transmissible this is and how severe the illness would be. I don't know if we have this graphic, but basically the A box there would be if something doesn't transmit well and is very low in terms of severity. Best case scenario. As you might guess, worst case scenario is box D, when suddenly something starts to spread very easily and is also very severe. Box D is what everyone's trying to prevent.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much, as always, for giving us that perspective on this. It certainly is a story we are going to continue to follow.
I'll be here again.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks.